Ladies and gentlemen, the news today is rather tame because everybody's focusing on the US elections and whether or not Donald Trump or Kamala Harris will win the race. You can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who's going to win? But before we turn on to some South African news, I did a interview with Ronaldo Goos on the other channel, Retardistan, a couple of days ago, and unfortunately the video got taken down by YouTube. I actually wrote an article on Substack as to why it got taken down, what part of the video was deemed to be sensitive, and what I had to edit out in order to re-upload the video. The video has now been re-uploaded, so if you want to watch it, the link is in the description box below, as per usual. So let's get on to the first news story. Well, it's that John Steenhuisen joined some Afrikaners at the Voortrekker Monument in order to protest against the Bella Bill. The Bella Bill, specifically clauses 4 and 5, which strips a school of the basic right to be able to set their language criteria. Well, according to John, this isn't great, because effectively what it will mean is that Afrikaners may find that they are no longer to educate their own kids in their native language, or their, mother tongue, as they call them, because of, historical reasons. The DA, who also governs the basic education portfolio, has been criticized already for basically not supporting the Bella Bill. And apparently by disputing the Bella Bill, which was signed by the president, that means you anti the president? This is apparently the argument being put forward. So John says, no, that's not the case. We're not actually against the president. We like the president. He's a great guy. But we're against the bill because the bill strips people of their constitutional rights. So we're still going to pursue a legal action against the bill. It's fairly obvious. It has nothing to do with the president. But as per usual, those in power don't usually see that there is this thing called a distinction between body and state. Clearly, the president who has to do the will of parliament, they basically put forward the bill. It must be his bill then, because it was his party. I suppose they put the bill forward. I don't know, make it make sense. You can tell me in the comment section below why you think that these guys are just retarded. So let's actually go on to another news article, which actually I felt was rather interesting because it gave me an angle that I didn't really think about. And that was actually the angle around Godongwana's budget. So in Godongwana's budget, he basically said he was setting aside a load of money, 11 billion rand to be precise, to allow individuals early retirement from the civil service. The argument for this was that basically civil service is too big. We need to get rid of like 30,000 people. Civil service wage bill is also very high. It's something that gets raised about at credit reviews all the time around the country's debt levels. And so Godongwana was going to try encourage the reduction of the civil service by encouraging these individuals to have early retirement. Makes sense, I suppose. What was interesting is that the unions themselves actually identified the flaw. And for once, they identified a flaw that I didn't even think about. And that is that the actual individuals who would no doubt be retiring are going to be people that actually know how the civil service works. They're probably the guys that are actually doing the work. Some individuals may be really racist and say that they may be hanger-ons from the apartheid times, which means that a lot of those departments that may have some Whities still stuck there from, way back when, would now be forced into retirement, which would lead to a huge influx of new individuals who wouldn't know how to do anything. They'd just come in there and be really mediocre and not do their work. And this actually raises a very interesting dilemma. So if you have any hanger-ons from the old regime, you do get to clean them out, I suppose. As the unions themselves have identified, many of those individuals may just take their skills and leave the country with their big fat paycheck and go work in a civil service somewhere else because their skills sometimes are very valuable. But that causes the departments themselves a big problem because the actual problem is that there are some very useless individuals who are overpaid because of the government's desire to almost enrich people through the public wage bill. As we've known in previous governments, they seem to think that jobs get created by the public service as opposed to the private service. And so obviously they've tried to give people forms of upward mobility through the public wage bill. These individuals aren't actually producing anything, and they're the problems on the system. But in many instances, what you may find is that the Tani who sits in the back corner, who's been doing the work for ages, she gets early retirement, and other work just doesn't get done. So this could effectively actually cause the collapse of many departments. Didn't actually really think about that. And I must say that actually when I read the article, I did go, it's rather true. I think we all know the Tani in the back corner that does the work whilst many of her colleagues go on lunch. That's not to say that there are no good actors in the civil service, because clearly there are. To make blanket statements would be delusional. But on the whole, we all kind of know the experience that these individuals are referring to. On another news story, apparently South Africa's credit rating may actually get an increase. But to be clear, the headlines are all talking about how we're going to get a credit rating up. Yeah, we're not getting a credit rating upgrade. What we're actually getting is that at the moment, our credit rating is like junk, but stable, as opposed to junk, but at risk of being super junk. What we're now going to get is a credit rating of junk, but positive, or, at risk of actually going up to not so junk. But in any case, I suppose it's good news because it shows that things are actually going in the right direction in South Africa, as opposed to Mozambique. So for those of you who haven't noticed, Mozambique had an election, and it was a rather important election because the governing party, a bit like Botswana, suppose everybody thought they may lose the election, but they haven't, in typical commie fashion. Because remember, Mozambique is a communist hellhole. Now, unfortunately, the citizens in that state are just like gutful. And they're like, you can only steal an election for so long. Now there's protests and riots. Those protests and riots are now continuing unabated, with the forms of opposition actually being subjected to assassination attempts. It's actually pretty bad. But what it does show you is that you can sit there and attempt to basically capture the electorate for a period, but there's only so long that you can capture it for. Eventually, the electorate just gets fed up of the normal commie rubbish. That means that the quality of life is terrible. And that's exactly where Mozambique finds themselves. At the moment, the ANC has called on the individuals within Mozambique to actually have a bit of calm. But I'm reminded that it was the ANC and, those parties, the ones I mean, that basically congratulated the communist morons for their captured election. They were always so quick to just go, oh, congratulations, you've done well. Not actually giving a real damn about the citizens of the state. Now, the citizens of the states are revolting, and it could potentially overspill into South Africa. By overspill, we just mean that, we get the usual rush of people trying to escape violence, and then they flee to the border and come to South Africa. In any case, South Africa is keeping a watchful eye on it right now. I mean, let's face it, we've got quite a few Mozambicans here already. In any case, that's it from me today. I mean, the big news is around the elections in the US, as I'm sure you can imagine. And at the moment, it's actually very difficult to say who's going to win, depending on who you read, because everybody at the moment is just engaging in their own form of disinformation. In any case, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who's going to win the elections? Until tomorrow. Bye.